between the 1300s Black Death and the 1918 Spanish flu, there were 57 pandemics, and there was only 4 cases of them that didn't result in a revolt or large-scale protest afterwards. And they actually announced a number of times.
Yeah, the cops just walked in.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on here. Should we? Yeah, that I was looking at my notes and I was like,
did somebody swat you?
Yep, somebody swatted us.
Did they really?
Swatted us?
Yep, somebody swatted us. So that's
How do you know?
what that
How do you
was.
know?
I have somebody texting me.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
so Tim's gonna go
Wow.
take care of
So,
business.
yeah, just a police officer
Just stroll
entered
it in.
here, looked around because it looks like someone swatted this live broadcast here.
Glad they didn't come in here busting, man.
I'm glad, yeah, man.
I mean, that's something that's extremely dangerous, extremely reckless, because SWAT incidences have led to a lot of innocent people
Literal
dying,
death.
dogs being shot, people thinking that their house is being raided by criminals defending themselves. So whoever did that and they're listening, like,
yeah, those things, and it's a healthy penalty if you get caught swatting. That's a felony crime, and you can spend years in jail over it because the inherent risk. If a police officer, believes that
got swatted, it's confirmed.
If the police officer believes that there's who knows what they said, they could have said somebody is screaming for help,
kidnapped. Someone's kidnapped here. We need to send in police officers.
And I heard a boom.
Yeah,
I don't know if
they opened that door loud.
They hit. So what if we were in here, and we saw them and we pulled the trigger on them?
Yeah.
And now we're in a shootout with the police. You can get them hurt. We can get hurt. It's crazy.
Did that happen to you while you were on the force? Did you ever get caught?
No, we never got caught on that.
I'm gonna tell you guys what just happened. I just walked out of the room. The cops walked in. They walked around with flashlights. We've been swatted. I am extremely unhappy with this because I can't necessarily be mad at the officers. They were very polite, but I do not like cops coming into my house when we have mats all over the place. They come back with a warrant.
Yeah.
And I don't know who let them in or why.
Yeah, what happened?
I understand they're here because we got swatted. A report was made that 2 people had been shot and killed, and that the gunman was threatening to hurt themselves. They didn't send a SWAT team. It was just a couple of officers. I don't want to drag them or be mean to them because they were polite. But I'm not happy with the idea that they're walking into our studio while we are live. They're walking around. Cop immediately, I walked out of the room. He immediately came up and said, I'm really, really sorry about this. We're not trying to, screw with you or ruin what you're doing. Here's what happened. We got a call. 2 people had been shot and killed, and a person was going to be killing themselves. We have to check it out and make sure everything's okay. We're going to be doing a sweep once we figure it out. And I'm just like, come back with a warrant.
But I have to say, this is what I have to say. I don't think that they believe that was 100% true. There's no way on planet Earth that only 2 officers would show up to a shooting, double homicide with a barricaded subject.
Yeah, tell them to leave and like.
Well, then let me just explain this from a police perspective as well. Is that if the police do a swatting call, right, and it's found to be illegitimate,
You're right.
They, any evidence that they think they may have or is suppressed because this was an illegitimate entry into a house. You can enter under exigent circumstances, but if it's an illegitimate exigent circumstance, there's no searching for evidence and different things like that. So I get it, but as a cop, I see how you can't just not do anything.
What's an exigent circumstance?
Exigent.
What's
that? Exigent circumstance, meaning that it's a
circumstance,
circumstance in which you have to do it in a hurry. It's a right now thing.
Right.
That means that right now I have to act.
Emergency.
It's an emergency.
I think this to me is like highlights the value of local police, because when I was in Chile, I noticed it was all national cops everywhere. They all have like uniforms standing on the corner. If you get a call like this and it's only national cops, you got no one's going to be there to defend
like
you.
what's happening
At
right
least
now.
You know your neighbors.
What's happening right now doesn't make sense. Like if I'm a cop and I'm hearing active shooting, guy with a gun shot 2 people, I'm not going to walk in here without a SWAT team, right?
Yeah.
Well, no, it depends, right? You got to think of, like I said, exigent circumstances. Police officers have a duty to respond immediately.
Right.
A SWAT team takes a while to assemble. I was on a SWAT team, and we had about an hour, if it was a full call out, a hostage situation, we still had to have enough time for everybody on the team to get their equipment and get to the location. And we had to get together to a certain degree to try to figure out what tactics we're going to use. So it takes time. If there was a real call of 2 people shot, a man with a gun, they have to respond now.
Right.
And if those 2 officers are the only ones in the area, they have to come now. And they have to force entry, and they have to make sure everything's okay. That speaks to the bravery of law enforcement officers, because what if there was a situation like that and they were the only 2 here and they were going to risk their lives potentially getting mowed down, shot and killed, ambushed.
Right.
But they had to respond anyway because there was potential loss of life that they had to rescue.
I've been hearing lately that cops don't have to respond.
Well, the Supreme Court has ruled many times if a police officer sees a crime happening, they do not have to intervene.
That's an argument. That's an
Welcome
argument.
back.
That's an argument in the
news.
Supreme Court. That's not an argument that happens on the scene.
I got news.
Oh, what's the news?
They entered in direct. Okay, hold on. I was just running around. When they came to the door, they were told you may not enter without a warrant. They said we're entering anyway.
Oh.
Wow.
Which is lawful.
Exigent circumstances.
Right.
We
Which
can
is
enter
Ah,
your
we just
property and
talked
search
about
the
that.
premises.
right, which is what I said.
I told them, with respect, officers, I would like you to leave unless you have a warrant. And they said, we get it, we get it. We swept the house, we're leaving.
But
I don't trust it.
No, but that's the way. No,
they
this
didn't
is
want
this,
to be here.
this is the way it's supposed to happen, right? And you're right by saying, "Hey, are you guys done? You need to leave." The police officers have to check because if they show up here and there's a dead body in the room somewhere because somebody, just say if somebody in the house called and said and called it in, but they actually did something to themselves, and the cops just showed up and said, "Oh, there's nothing there." The next morning, there's a dead person in the house. Who's going to be held liable? So a quick sweep is reasonable, and then they have to leave.
For future reference,
Yes.
cops ever walk in like that, put on the room cam.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Well, it takes me a minute to switch it over, but yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Or whatever
just like, I
camera
know what
shows
to
them.
do.
So Brandon was talking, and the cops are like walking around with flashlights, and I'm like,
I saw all their faces too. Everyone
And-
looked. I was
yeah,
like,
and-
what's
and-
everyone looking at?
the one cop, he like waves over to me, and I'm like, no.
I'm like recording.
I
We're-
thought
we're live. What are you
I
doing?
thought,
Join
I
the
thought it
show,
was a
man.
friend of yours. I thought he knew you.
Oh,
I
no.
thought he was coming to the show because I saw the door, but I'm like, who's coming in during the podcast?
Going on.
Well, I feel bad. They were being nice, and I understand like someone calls in and says people are dead.
Yeah.
And they're like, let's go check it out. And their mentality is like, we're going to be protecting Tim and his house and everything.
With our lives, and we don't know
Right.
what's happening.
Yeah,
You see, it was only 2 of them.
There were 3.
Oh,
No,
three.
there were like 4 or 5
Oh,
guys.
4 or 5,
Okay.
which is good.
Because that was the upstairs
Good,
guys.
good.
But when you brought up like, there's no way they wouldn't come with gear, they wouldn't be prepared. I think when they got here and realized everything was looking normal, they were like, okay, let's just do a check, but it seems like a swatting, right? The
Yeah,
problem I have with it is, I don't want to blame the guy, because there's a circumstance of, what if someone got killed? What
Right,
if they're
exactly.
really in trouble? But then the problem is, what if they can just use exigent circumstances as a pretext to come into my house? We have doormats at every door that's come back with a warrant.
That's not a joke.
So Allison, who was downstairs, they come to the door and says, you cannot come in without a warrant. And they said, we are coming in anyway. We have exigent circumstances. And then I was like, because when they walked in here, I'm like, who let him in?
Yeah, of course. First
No,
thought.
they let themselves in.